Very well, welcome back. This is Business Inside. I told you we want to discuss cashless system payment solutions, and where we are and what we are doing and what we need to do in order to migrate fully into a cashless society. Danson Muchemi is the CEO of JamboPay. He's now joining us here to share with us his insight. Thank you very much indeed, Danson,
thank you,
for finding time to be with us this evening.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Tell me this. When you look at the figures, that I have just projected there, what are they saying about the future of non-cash payments?
I think the future is non-cash payments, and we look at what you are seeing in Asia there. The numbers are really driven by platforms like the Alibaba and such other platforms. Mm-hmm. So it is commerce that will drive, it's the trade, the business that will drive a lot of these numbers that we are looking at. Mm-hmm. And even closer home here, you look at the numbers, the growth. We have over 400 billion every month of m-commerce. That's transactions that are basically going towards payments for goods and services. Mm-hmm. Through mobile phones and so forth. So what that essentially is saying is that the future is in M or e-commerce, mm-hmm. and that commerce future is on mobile. Yeah.
Who is growing faster between m-commerce and online commerce?
I think m-commerce is growing faster. Mm-hmm. You look at the numbers,
especially here in Kenya.
Even here in Kenya, we mm-hmm. have 45 million mobile subscription, and that is a 7% data penetration. Mm. And if you look at that comparing with internet connection, that is direct internet connection that are non-mobile, that's 40% higher. So it's basically mobile commerce driving and going to be the future of a lot of business that will happen. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing those trends now. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Tell me this, when it comes to mobile payment solutions, we know that Kenya is the leader in the world. Why haven't we fared so well when it comes to online commerce?
A good question. I think three factors. One is we have quite underdeveloped infrastructure in terms of delivery infrastructure. Mm-hmm. If you look at paved roads, we have quite a challenge in terms of the road networks. That's number one. Mm-hmm. And so this has led to a lot of international delivery companies shying away, even local companies not being efficient. Mm-hmm. Number two, we lack address system. So we do not have the addressing and numbering system that you find in Western world, in Asia, and other parts of the world that e-commerce has really thrived. Mm. And then we also have a challenge on cybersecurity, fears and real cybersecurity threats. And so that's a major challenge. I think the other challenge that is also there, or a factor that has hindered or has been a major challenge to growth of e-commerce is aspects of the number of banked people with bank accounts relatively low. So that is banking infrastructure is still underdeveloped. Mm-hmm. And,
especially in the rural areas.
In the rural areas, mm-hmm. Though mobile payments are really coming in to fill that gap. Mm-hmm.
Tell me this. We've been talking about, and Kenya is not new to internet. We've been talking about, or we've been playing with internet since the mid-1990s. We have about almost 5 fiber optic cables in this country. So why do we still have very costly broadband in this country? And why is connection still very low compared to, let's say, South Africa, Egypt, or even Morocco?
By the way, Kenya is among the best in terms of number of connections, data, internet connection or penetration in Africa. We are now at slightly over 70%, I think.
No, when you remove mobile.
Yes.
I'm talking about fixed now.
I think it's costly because of the aspects of planning, and so it's costly to maintain these links and these networks. Mm-hmm. And a good example is areas where you have an internet service provider has laid a cable, a duct, And then next year we have a road that is supposed to be built on that. And that means they have to relocate that. We also have had a lot of vandalism, some of it deliberate, that's driven by competition, and others that are just out of these activities that are out of the infrastructure or other infrastructural developments happening. And I think those are the major factors that have contributed to the high costs of data steal here in Africa. But must say that it's among the quality or the you look at the bandwidth is among the best in the region. Yeah.
And of course, also another plus is the fact that internet speed is also one of the highest.
Yeah, it's the highest.
Here
actually,
in
globally.
Africa.
Actually, yeah.
Tell me this. I mean, you have partnered, with a number of organizations, and one of the best known is the JamboPay, whereby you pay your parking, you pay for business permits, via your mobile phone. From your experience, what is hindering public institutions in the government itself, when it comes to the rollout of cashless option systems?
I think one of those that we have had to contend with is the laws. And I'll give a good example. Today, we have a law that says you cannot spend at source. And that means you are not able to charge transaction fees at the point of transaction. And that automatically eliminates the use of Visa, MasterCard, and other, generally all global payments platforms will have a scenario where they are deducting at the point of transaction. So one of those is the laws. Number two is we have generally the infrastructural readiness of a lot of government entities. To support a basic digital payment infrastructure, you need to have a certain infrastructure in place. You need to have computers, you need to have networks. We have a huge challenge on connectivity in especially a lot of rural areas. That is a challenge to a lot of county governments and other, even ministries and national, some parastatals that need to roll out digital transactions across the country. So we have the aspects of infrastructure, aspects of the law, and we also have aspects of general awareness and ICT readiness in terms of skills. A lot of these organizations have a bit of a challenge in terms of personnel that has know-how on ICT, and such you find a lot of them are reluctant to adopt to ICT. Nairobi has made great strides in the digital payments with over 96% of, for example, the last year's collections, 96% of the revenue was collected on digital platform. And this is because we have most of this ready, or most of these factors in terms of infrastructure. They have also enacted certain laws that support that kind of an environment, and also deliberate moves by so the leadership of the county to move towards digital payments.
Very well. And apart from Nairobi, you have definitely interacted with other counties like Meru, Trans Nzoia, and so much. What has been your experience when it comes to dealing with public institutions, when it comes to the rollout of cashless payment systems? And we know for sure that companies are facing serious frustrations from people who do not want this to succeed for obvious reasons. How have you managed to weather these?
I think stakeholder engagement, having the public, the citizens in those areas, they participate fully and get to understand from the onset the benefits of having a digital platform is key to this. And we have, as JamboPay, we have had a lot of experience in that, and we have always adopted the model of participation of public by way of having agencies or having traders in those areas become agents of JamboPay so that they participate in revenue collection. That's one. Secondly is where we have worked closely with the county governments to bring about the change, especially mindset change, so that you have a lot of the staff support this kind of a platform. And most importantly is the rollout of platforms that are easy to use. So we provide mobile-based, agency-based, bank-based, web-based, and app-based digital collection platforms.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me this. I mean, this is not the first time, that Kenya is toying with the idea, of eliminating cash payment solutions. I want to take you back to the year around 2000, 1998, thereabout. I don't know where you are, but the Kenya bus service, back then, the stagecoach, they came up with a card. It used to be called Mega Rider, whereby you pay on a monthly basis, and then you ride for the rest of the month, which actually worked very well before it died with the stagecoach. I want to find out from you, when government tried to come up with a similar project in the name of Matatu, it used to be called Cashless, system. And we saw banks like, KCB, coming up with my 1963 card. We saw Equity Bank coming up with the JamboPay. Then it all failed. Why haven't we gotten it right when it comes to the elimination of cash payment, in our public transport system?
I think one of those, from where we sit, I think one of the major reasons why that failed was, I think there was too much government involvement. I think, in my opinion, government should set the laws, create the policies, and then allow the standards and other aspects of operations of that platform to be really private sector driven. And that did not happen then. I think the protocols, the standards, a lot of them were pushed down throats of a lot of payment service providers. I think the other bit of it was also the awareness was not, there was a bit of a challenge in getting a lot of stakeholders on board. And more so because the bus owners, the investors in that industry, the Matatu investors, they were left behind a lot. We had probably leaderships, or a number of top leaders involved, but and a lot of others, a lot of Matatu owners were left behind. So the concept was not well explained to stakeholders like the Matatu owners or investors in that sector, transport sector, and the public. And from a technical and operational aspects, the distribution model, distribution network for to support that kind of infrastructure was not in place.
So, I mean, sorry for stepping on your shoes, but I want to find out, part of the reason why it is claimed that the system failed was that the stakeholders, being the Matatu owners, were not willing, to migrate to a cashless system. How far from the truth could this be?
A Matatu owner every day is suffering out of or from lost money or lost revenue due to bribery and a lot of other loss of theft and declared revenues. And so I think that's not true. It's not the entire truth. A lot of Matatu owners and investors in that sector would want to have a cashless platform that gives them transparency and ensures that you have accountability and you have proper records on all the revenue that you collect. But they ought to have participation, ownership, and I think even the fees and the charges were also quite exorbitant in terms of getting the equipment, the infrastructure you had to pay. And it did not make a lot of sense to the crew, the guys who are interacting with that. So you would find the conductors and the drivers, they are feeling defranchised, or they were feeling like the value adds were not well communicated or articulated to all the stakeholders in that industry. Yes.
Tell me this. I mean, Danson, I know you're well traveled, and I know you've been to some parts of Europe and even America and China, definitely. And you have seen how the public transport system, I mean, you don't pay. There is no way you interact with cash. You go to a bank, you pay, for your travel card. You pay for a month, you pay on a quarterly basis, you pay on an yearly basis, and you travel, with comfort. What is so hard about implementing such a system here in Kenya?
Well, the infrastructure readiness of that. You see, in Asia, Europe, and all those other parts of the world that this has been successful, they have had well thought and well planned and well implemented infrastructure that is transport. And a good example is before you get to the area that you get into to board a matatu or a tram or a train, you have barriers, or you have a clear demarcation from the rest of the public. And to access that point, you have a gate that you would tap. That is a major factor in having a successfully implemented cashless transport system. Unfortunately, we do not have that. And it's a challenge to payment service providers like JamboPay. We are in this part of the world, and that means we have to provide such solutions or solutions to such challenges. Yes.
We have seen, SGR, trying to come up, with a system whereby you buy your card, you load cash in it, and then you'll be traveling with it. Tell me this, are we looking, is it possible to have a public sector which is completely cashless?
Yes, it is possible. It takes time, but it is possible. We estimate that it's going to happen in the next probably 5 to 6 years.
In the next 6 years?
Yes, we will have that.
We'll have a non-cash
system. Minimal in transport, public transport sector, it is possible that we will have in 6 years a completely cashless or a cashlight environment. Probably other areas would take much longer or slightly longer, but we are moving towards that.
When you look at, because you operate in a number of countries, yes. You're in Uganda, you're in Ghana, the model that they use there, what can we learn from them?
Well, Kenya is a leader in Africa in mobile payments and digital payments, and I think the lessons to learn from these countries is, for example, looking at Ghana, that we have entered mobile payments or m-commerce later or after Kenya, is the aspect of the regulator there opening up the space and creating environment for competition. So we have less of dominance or sort of dominant players in West. And so as such you have tariffs and prices of transactions being very competitive. And I think that's one lesson that Kenya should learn from some of the African countries and even beyond Africa, creating and supporting environment that supports competition and environment that is deliberate in terms of getting more players so that you have better services in terms of quality. Whenever you have competition, you have quality happening because you have competitors trying to outdo each other, or players outdoing each other in terms of costs, quality, and other such aspects of service. Yes.
When you look at Sweden, which is cited as a model of how a country can phase out cash transactions, and then you look at Kenya, whereby in Sweden about 80% of all transactions are cashless transactions. Come back here in Kenya, whereby 80% of all transactions here in Kenya are done, cash. How can we deal with the issue of corruption, by eliminating bills and coins, in our transactions?
Well, I think digital payments is a sure way of dealing with corruption and such other social and economic vices. Really, that's a sure bet that if you move digital, you have a better visibility. You're able to be in charge of a lot of what is happening in the economy. And I think really what needs to be done there deliberately by the government is to really support transformation or move or transition to digital payments by way of having subsidies. Those countries subsidize digital payments. So I think here what we are seeing is almost opposite. We have more taxes
Yeah.
on digital payments.
That's why I was
becoming
actually
expensive
coming
to,
next.
It is expensive to pay through digital payments than cash. We ought to put in place measures and mechanisms of reversing that. Digital payments should be encouraged. I think subsidies and such other initiatives ought to be happening in that space.
Do you see the seriousness of government, when it talks about moving into a cashless society, and at the same time they are heavily taxing those who opt to pay not to pay cash?
Well, I see. You see, government is at forefront of promoting. For example, we have the e-citizen platform. The government has made a lot of bold and deliberate moves to move towards digital payments. That means government appreciates the benefits of having cashless and digital payments and digital platforms in service delivery.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there is certain moves or certain initiatives or steps that have been taken that have really been harmful towards ensuring that other sectors beyond government are benefiting or moving at the same pace as government. And that is the taxation, or having now the excise duty on digital transactions. I think that's one area that is we ought to debate as a society and see what can be done so that we do not have contradictions and we do not have inconsistencies in our move towards or our general direction as a society. Yes.
Danson, as we wind up, I want to find out from you. I mean, you are a guru in this industry, having founded one of the largest, cashless payment solutions in Kenya, and having, being in this field for almost 10 years now, you must be having tremendous amount of wealth. Where do you see us going with cashless transactions in the next 5 years?
Well, now we are seeing, we are talking about numbers like 200 million a month number of transactions in terms of P2P. And we are looking at over 600 billion of transactions.
Shillings.
In that space. And we are also looking at about 500 billion of commerce worth of transactions happening on mobile payments. So I think going forward, we are going to see a huge growth. It's going to continue growing, and hoping that the policies and steps that government and other actors put in place will be supportive of that environment. We will see, I think we will move towards having more cashless and more digital environments for business and trade. At the same time, I see an opportunity for a lot of traders, a lot of entrepreneurs, because this, what digital payment does is brings a lot of ease in commerce. This means you will have ability to sell to anyone, anywhere in the world. So through e-commerce and m-commerce. And at the same time, it means you will have competition right at your doorstep from another part of the world. So you will sell potatoes from Kinago to someone in Europe. At the same time, someone in Netherlands who is producing potatoes will attempt to sell to someone in Nairobi. So it's going to be more of a liberal and open and very connected and transparent and mobile-based future that we will be seeing in coming days.
Do you see the government, embracing the use of digital currency in the next decade?
Change will happen. Change happens, and so first for sure, digital currency, most cryptocurrency is based on blockchain. I'm certain that in the next few years, we are going to have that technology in use, not just in financial services, but in many other. Blockchain technology will be in use by government. In terms of cryptocurrencies, yes, we will have that, probably in one form or another. And I know the concerns the government would have in that environment. We are regulated and we work closely with the central bank. And so a lot of these issues have been raised. And so, yes, it will happen, probably in one form or another form.
Very well.
Yes.
Danson, you and I, we are here for the longest time possible.
Thank you.
And we'll see how the market will evolve and how the landscape will change.
Yep.
And definitely one of these fine years we'll have another discussion like this and reflect back in history.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much indeed for your time and insight.
Asante sana.
Great. Danson Muchemi is the CEO of JamboPay, joining us here to help us understand the direction non-cash payment solution is taking in this country.